I'm not gonna talk until I'm intro.
I can start the intro. I want to start the dun dun dun. Is that how you
That's
do the
literally
music?
not even intro anymore.
Oh man!
No.
All right. Well, welcome to Three Brothers Talking. I'm your host, Jeremy.
I don't think I've ever said I don't think I've ever claimed to be a host.
I just did it.
Well.
So that's why we started this one this way. That's what happens when you
And
hit
here
me
we
on
are.
the spot. We already started. It's episode 80 of Three Brothers Talking. I'm Jeremy. It's a double
I'm
intro.
Oh
Yeah.
wait, who goes next? Me or Andrew?
Yeah, we mixed
I
up
want
the order.
Andrew next. Go ahead, Andrew.
I'm Andrew.
I am David.
All right.
We're really like in trouble when we
Yeah.
get out of rhythm because you don't realize how many habits you have until like you swap it around just a little bit.
until Jeremy does that.
Hey man, I
Well,
think I nailed it. I nailed 2 intros
Uh.
there. This is already the best podcast we've ever had. You made me wait
Yeah.
80 episodes before I got to intro.
That's not true. We've had you intro an episode
Yeah,
before.
but I've
if I
gotten
remember
better.
right.
Yeah, but the whole I'm your host. That sounds like we're at a game show or something.
Maybe it is a game show.
Yeah.
I'm hosting. You don't know what's gonna happen right now.
Andrew, you're exactly right. There was a game show affectation of the
Mhm.
voice there. Yeah,
That's what I was going for. I'm glad you caught it.
Yeah.
you were going for that.
I was
You're like, I
definitely
really
going
want to
I wasn't
channel.
going for radio. I was going for like inner Alex Trebek.
I was going for like a mid '90s daytime game show. That's what I was really
Exactly.
trying to hit. That's big on the podcast front.
I heard it's
Um,
big for listeners, David. Just trying to expand our listenership.
We're trying to fill that gap. It's really a missing market. So this is actually maybe this is the best possible intro for what we're talking about tonight, which is a bit of a test for the podcast. In that, we have a couple things to talk about that I think will put us to the test about whether or not we are just some, like basic random collection of white dudes having a podcast, or if we've actually got the skills to, make this work, make this go, which we're 80 episodes in.
Make solid
Hopefully we
content.
have enough skills to make it go. But if not, I mean, I don't know. Faith asked me the other night, like, what do you guys?
I think
we just kind of
that's
take ourselves
ultimately
seriously.
for the listeners to judge.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I guess it depends if we have more or less listeners after these episodes, or if it's dwindling down.
Go
I'm
with less.
surprised. Like I said to Faith the other day, I'm like, I'm surprised if anyone listens. Like, honestly. So thank you to our listeners who are listening now. We appreciate you.
Well, Faith came back at you a little bit with how we're just like everybody else who thinks they should have a podcast, but probably shouldn't. Is that
No,
right?
that's
Am
not
I quoting
exactly
her
what
correctly?
happened. Yes and no. No, she didn't say it like that. She wasn't thinking that. So we were
She
discussing.
didn't say it that harshly.
No, she was no. We were just talking about how we have a friend who just the fact of it seems like every guy in our age group starts a podcast with at least 2 to 3 guys. And like they're like, oh, we're gonna be the theology and sports, or like theology and something, or just like the sports and something podcast. Like, so I don't know, we were talking about that, and she's like, well, what sets you guys apart? And I'm like, well, hopefully we just don't take ourselves that seriously. That's kind of the thing I've noticed. The podcasts I enjoy listening to most are ones that don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only podcasts that I think I enjoy listening to are ones that either you have to know your place. So if you shouldn't take yourself that seriously, then don't. However, if you are actually like, there are a few that I listen to probably
Yeah.
that have incredibly knowledgeable people on them,
Like the
and it's
podcast.
fine.
Yeah.
But even they don't take themselves that seriously.
No.
But other people that are like incredibly knowledgeable, it's like, oh, it's fine when you do it. But
You have the
people
credentials.
they have the credentials and they have the actual knowledge. But the problem is like we definitely have a and we might be some of these people, but there is a easy way to these days believe that you're really funny. You're much funnier than you are because you have a Twitter that you can tweet, like you can retweet things on that are funny, and you can like make some comments every now and then that are funny. And then you have the ability to just start a podcast and you're like, oh, me and my friends are funny. That's like the pandemic that we have now, I think, right?
a pandemic
is-
of podcasts.
Yeah, well,
Is that
it's
what you're
it's
saying,
just,
David?
it's easy to think. It's easy to think because of social media, because of all the stuff that we are really interesting, and then we start podcasts to I don't know, try it out, see how it
So-
goes.
So I guess I'll ask you guys, or do we think we're that interesting? Like, this is episode 80. How interesting do you think we really are?
About
80
8
episodes
episodes
worth?
worth.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, yeah, no. I mean,
See, this is a trick question.
the
If you
thing that-
answer that we're not interesting, then we're telling people to turn off the podcast.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that I was like the thing that I was like for us, it's all just like this is our we catch up on these things, and we are actually three brothers who like to communicate and talk to each other. And that's something that, like, you know, you're talking about just, you know, our demographic, white guys starting podcasts, like that does, it's a little bit something that sets us apart in that we are three brothers who live in the same area, who maintain a friendship and like to stay connected, and we're all at this phase in life.
I love the description of the demographic as white guys. What was it? White guys starting podcasts.
Yeah.
That was the demographic.
Yeah.
That's the market that we're in.
That's
What
a
if we-
Nielsen rating group, I think.
What if we, instead of trying to, you know, reach people who don't have podcasts, what if we shift exclusively to trying to be listened to only other guys that are also starting podcasts? I think that's
Like
a big enough
how-to
field.
podcast? Like
Well,
the gut check guide to publishing? Not a
Yeah,
sponsor
like-
yet.
it'd be the Three Brothers guiding to podcasting, but it would be probably very less productive. That's, I think, the way that Andrew said in episode 78. Look at that recall that I have.
Whoa.
It's not just
I don't even know what I said then.
it's
I don't
not
remember
just
that far back.
it's not just because it just came out and we just recorded it a few days ago. But whenever we were talking about what the podcast is, and the fact that Andrew's explanation of it, the fact that nobody instinctively said this is a podcast where we teach theology or teach about life, or, you know, it was none of that. Like, when we asked what was it, it was just kind of like, oh, we're just three brothers that talk. And you know, Andrew said, like, this is a chance that we have to catch up and talk about things, and maybe other people find it interesting. The fact that that was what we perceive our own podcast to be, I hope that shields us from being too self-important, but I can't be too sure.
I agree with that.
I mean, yeah.
I think we don't take. I hope we don't take ourselves too seriously. I mean, at least in one arena of life, to just chill out and not.
Well, isn't that just kind of what so much of the world, like, especially in our culture, like, that we kind of really suffer from in a lot of ways, is how desperately serious we want to take ourselves all the time.
Well, and everything has to be a side hustle or something
Yeah.
like that. Too. It has to be a production based. I mean,
Well,
this
we
does
can-
make, you know, buku podcast bucks, but you know,
How I was like, we build up our platforms so much. So yeah.
Well, and so much of it is kind of shielded in a, like, faux irony, where we do take ourselves seriously, but we also sort of show it through the cynical or ironic things we post on social media.
are you talking about us exactly, like us three,
No,
or in
us
general, the spirit of
us
the
in general.
age?
Yes. Spirit of the age. That was a serious term to throw in there. I was just meaning that's the culture we live in. So I guess
Gotcha.
you're right. Yeah, like we are kind of all take ourselves seriously, way too seriously. And I don't know, hopefully we don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully
So-
not.
Hopefully not. You never, you know,
Well, since I'm
I
hosting,
think we've
Dave,
learned that lesson.
Can I ask another question? Since, like,
No.
before our other set of questions, before number 3.
I've actually decided to abandon this
Oh,
this
man.
podcast after that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Well, I wanted to know what's one thing you're enjoying right now.
Oh,
Hmm.
The first thing that came to my mind is really enjoying like Haddon is just about 9 months old, and it's
playing the kid card.
It's
No,
I
no,
know.
I have to change mine.
I'll come up with another
Mine was
one.
selfish.
I'll come up with another one, but it sounds really cliche, like an old man to say. It's a fun age. It's a fun age, you know. And I'll probably say that many more times in his life.
I guarantee you'll say that probably next week when it's 10
Yeah, I know.
months. It's a fun age.
He's aging quickly then, but it is fun just in that like he is becoming more interactive, and like you can see even though he can't speak yet, he can't like interact on all the levels he's going to, right? But he's starting to like try, and it just feels like he's more interactive, and it feels like he's actually playing on purpose and things like that. So it's a lot of fun to do that. So yeah.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah.
Angie, you got something?
Well, yeah, not to hit on, I guess, playing the kid card again.
Oh man,
but
we're both playing kid cards.
Well, I was like, we're in a little different.
We'll do another round.
No, we're in a different category though, because mine is focused on enjoying the fact that Addie is about 19 months now. Lincoln is a little over 3, and so they've really tried to, or they've really gotten to playing together and enjoying each other's company. In that, like, everything now that Lincoln does, he wants to show Addison and wants her to be a part of it. So that's cool. Really cool. That's really cool to see, of like, you know, when he gets a new toy or whatever, trying to bring her along and show her how to play with it, and stuff like that. And for Addison, like, she is obsessed with Lincoln, and whatever she gets, she has to get another one for her brother and take it to him. And awesome. Is just, you know, wanting to be around him, and they chase each other around the house, and I hear them laughing all the time, up until the point where Lincoln like knocks her over accidentally or something because he's the bigger brother.
That's gonna happen. Yeah,
and then you get a cry here and there, but she toughs it out, and then she goes right back to loving him. So,
all right, well, I'll do another kid one. Let me just do a non-kid one.
Yeah.
So for me, Micah and Maddie, like I said, it's great that there's a fun age right now. They're literally like the same age as Andrew's kids, which is great.
Yeah.
Literally almost
like
exactly.
Each like 2 weeks apart.
Yeah.
The bun was in the oven longer for Madeline. But well,
I was gonna say, like, the listeners really need to grasp, but when we say that, it's not an exaggeration.
No, they're literally both 2 weeks apart from
they could
each
almost
other.
both be sets of twins.
Yeah. But they're different, not the same sets.
Yes.
Anyway, Micah is the older brother, and like Maddie will get, the other day he FaceTimed me a video at work, and all of a sudden it's like, I guess Maddie like was upset, and Micah like walked over and like hugged her, and like kept saying shh, 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 and like hugging her, and then like he'd go, "Are you okay now?" And then like she'd say yeah, and like they're standing hugging. So like seeing that is pretty awesome, and it's a fun age, man. It's a fun age. So I guess, yeah, and it's cool seeing, I guess, the hard was, I think the one thing like we can all say here is the hard work that our wives have put into it during the day, or even when we're impatient doing other things. But yeah. But so what's one non-child thing you can add if it's other things, but non-child related and thing you're enjoying?
This is too hard.
I can go first if you want, because I've had time to think about it.
Yeah,
and this goes into something else, but we'll see if you want to jump in. I've been enjoying, I have issues. I'm not the best sleeper at all, but I've tried to get better, but it's hard. So one thing that I've learned is help me fall asleep.
He's closed his eyes really hard.
I've closed them really hard, and then like this isn't working.
That strobe light has to turn off.
Turn out all lights.
I can sleep better.
But no, trying to watching Bigfoot documentaries or something like that, or Monster Quest on the History Channel.
Oh, I'm glad we brought this up.
I figured you would be. Like I had a whole thing about it. I've been enjoying it because like one, it's like nature, and it's just like kind of like, oh, nature sounds, and also it's kind of funny like some of the stuff that happens in these documentaries, and it's just it's entertaining.
So
to me.
you're using them to put yourself to sleep?
I don't know. I just enjoy watching them. Like in general, like I'll typically watch them like late at night because like they are relaxing. Like some people watch Bob Ross and like I watch Bigfoot documentaries. So we're all good. We're all the same.
But like aren't most of them like literally
some of them are way too serious. I'll give you that.
Yeah, talking about taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah, well, I don't take myself too seriously.
The hunting for Bigfoot shows, I feel like, are basically all the same. You've got nighttime, you've got, flashlights.
Hence
and
why if you fall asleep, you don't miss much because
you've got wrestling.
We saw a shadow
wrestling
over there.
in the leaves, but how is that relaxing? Like all it is just like, oh, what's that wrestle?
It's dark. It's typically a dark thing, and there's usually like not that many sounds. It's more just people going, "Oh, what's that? Oh, is that knocking? Did you knock or did someone else knock?" It's entertaining.
Did you make that sound? Yeah.
Did you make that?
So are you gonna like switch over to like ghost hunting documentaries?
No, I don't like ghost hunting documentaries. I don't like those.
That's where he draws the line, David.
I don't draw the line. At least Bigfoot's entertaining and like other things. There's a good Bigfoot podcast on a friend of the pod, sort of Apologia, cultish. I know him on Facebook. We've talked a few times. He's got the same name as me.
Okay, hold on. So they're not. I thought you were about to say that we knew somebody.
Oh no!
Who hosted a Bigfoot focused podcast?
No,
they have done episodes.
Should we do a Bigfoot focused podcast?
No. To be clear, they have done episodes about.
Yeah,
Bigfoot.
They've done 2, and they're entertaining.
They are not a Bigfoot podcast.
Not yet. They could be.
It's a free country, specific David. Bigfoot podcasts, Jeremy.
I will be honest. I know. I have listened to them because
people are going to think we've got
Jeremy
friends.
Is a subscriber, so
I don't subscribe, but I listen on occasion.
Are you going to switch when you run out of videos to watch? Are you going to switch to audio only?
David,
you think,
this is the beauty of it. Is because they will never run out of videos because there's always someone walking outside in the dark.
It's
somewhere,
all just recording
thinking they
at
saw
night.
him or whatnot. No, but like Monster Quest, they do like giant squids and like other things like that. So it is kind of interesting.
I was going to ask what the
and
next
the Loch Ness monster.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you're going to go over to Loch Ness whenever you run out of Bigfoot.
I mean, David, it's all part of the same fun.
Do you dabble? Do you dabble in both?
I dabble in both. I'm a dabbler. I'm a dabbling day all day.
And you dabbling in both? Okay.
What about UFOs, aliens?
I don't do that.
That's weird stuff.
I don't jump into that mumbo jumbo stuff. I asked Faith when we were dating if she believed in aliens, and that was like one of my telling moments. So she said no.
But where are you watching these? Is it like
just YouTube, man? I just YouTube it.
Oh, okay.
Or Hulu has a few. Netflix used to have more.
Actually, I did
Prime used to have a few.
I did see one on Hulu to watch, actually.
So I used to watch all the time when we were living together. I still don't know if you know, but when I was sick one day, like I sat on the couch and I'm like, Faith, I just want to sit here and watch Bigfoot documentaries. Because that's like what I did when I was really sick, is laid on the couch and watch Bigfoot. And and she let me, and she did a great job. She got me popsicles and watched them with me.
You did that when we lived together?
Every once in a while.
I don't remember that at all.
I don't know. We didn't always hang out.
I've never been one for the Bigfoot, but
I would have told you to stop.
I'm a sucker, and I think David's been sucked in the past too on those the survival shows.
Oh, I love Alone. Alone is where it's at.
Alone is a great one.
That's a good one.
And I enjoy those quite a bit.
That's what got me through my first quarantine, was watching Alone.
Did you feel like you were alone? Is that why you're like, I'm alone?
I'm just like those guys. So I mean, they're surviving in the wilderness. I'm surviving in my living room.
On my couch.
In your living room where I can DoorDash whatever food I need.
And Chipotle got dropped off like 30 minutes late, so I was hungry too.
Did you get a refund for that?
My throat was a little sore, and I had to get some tea. He's out there like eating some weed from the bottom of the river.
Living on the land.
Here's
for
a grub
2
that
months.
I found. I know that's like, I ate a burger that's a day old. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a survivor too, man. You and me.
You ain't gonna give up.
We're the same.
We both have the same. Documentaries are fun.
We both have the same resiliency.
You're basically the same. You are Bear Grylls, except for like the Office episode where Michael goes into the wild. That's a quality episode.
Survivor Man.
Yeah.
I believe that's the name of that episode.
Yeah, I like those. I like nature documentaries like that. Shark. I'll watch shark stuff all day. Shark movies. I think we've talked about that before on the pod. But yeah, so that's something I've been enjoying. I figured you'd appreciate.
Jeremy's big on
nature documentaries that are not nature documentaries.
Sharks.
What sharks are, dude? Watching like great white documentaries is
that's
fascinating.
Fair. Okay, that's actual nature. I was saying like because I like nature stuff, but I don't. I'm not going to claim that like Bigfoot is a nature documentary.
I mean, it's in nature, so
No,
I guess it all depends on the way you look at it.
Is it? Have they?
Is it?
I
found
mean,
it?
they're in nature when they do that. They're in the middle of a forest.
Yeah, when they hear the rustling leaves, yeah,
they're in
out
nature.
there.
That's nature.
Yeah, but is Bigfoot out there?
That's just like nature walk. The same thing.
man, I tell you what, I've been so distracted by Jeremy's Bigfoot stuff that I don't even know if I can come up with something that I'm enjoying right now.
Why do you think I'm growing a beard
Yeah.
so burly? So I can
So
blend in.
so you can go, you can blend in. You can go out on
so
a
I can
Bigfoot
just go
hunt.
on these Bigfoot hunts. Like maybe that's what I'll do when I retire is like become a pastor and a Bigfoot hunter.
Pastor and Bigfoot hunter.
Sounds
Jeremy
like a good
Appel.
podcast.
Let's not
No?
do that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep it on the docket for maybe later in life, I guess. I'll keep it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Who knows what'll
Who
come
knows?
up.
Who knows? How the turntables turn. All right.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Something you're enjoying. Here's some. I don't know, Andrew. You have something you're enjoying?
I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing that the days are getting a little bit longer now. It's not pitch
That's
black
nature.
at my house, after, basically like 7:00 now. Starting to stretch out. And I know you boys know, but I just, I got myself a new set of golf irons that I'm looking forward to with the stretching out of the days, hopefully a little warmer weather.
And you live on a golf course now.
And we do live on a golf course
He
now.
has
but
no access to it, but he does live on it.
I don't have direct access to it, but it is nice to look at.
Hey, you know what? Quick
Yeah.
shout out. If any of the listeners to this podcast are members of the Pinnacle Golf Club,
Oh man, now you show his location.
Yeah, you just
My
Man, that's a faux pas, Dave.
I'll bleep it out.
Edit that out. I mean, we didn't edit out any of Andrew's like baby announcements, so
Yeah. But hey, if they can, I'm just trying to do Andrew a favor. If they can get
That's
him
true.
onto the golf course,
maybe
like,
Pinnacle will sponsor the pod, and we'll all get memberships.
Oh, that
and
would
with
be.
that, I will. If they do that,
that would
I
be
promise
a
to use it
huge
one time.
That'd be a huge sponsorship.
I will
like-
use it once.
That's
at
like
least.
a very expensive sponsorship.
Yeah.
The
Well,
cash
you know.
value of that is insane.
Oh come on,
Um,
it can't be that bad.
Oh,
This
it's
is
a lot.
golf.
I mean,
I go frisbee golfing all the time. It's free. Same thing.
Jeremy, I can send you the fees if you're
Yeah,
interested.
Andrew
I'm
looked
good.
into them. You move by
Yeah.
that golf course, you look into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure
And-
he did.
After a few minutes, you stop looking into it.
I stopped looking into it, at least for the near future. But other golf courses around, looking forward to being able
Other
to,
ones, yeah.
to utilize that and get out. I enjoy it whenever I can. Whenever, I like being outside on a good day and doing that. So,
Yeah. Goodness gracious, guys. I'm just
David doesn't
enjoying
enjoy
nothing.
anything.
No, we've had a busy couple of weeks.
Jeremy, David, you've been preaching a lot.
I have been preaching
Yeah,
a
people
lot,
would
and
listen to David preach.
that's part of
Word.
why it's been busy and enjoyable. This week, as we record, I get a privilege to speak at our old high school, which is cool. Little weird, like not speaking to a very instead of like speaking to the whole church, right? You're speaking to like a very specific group of people, which is really different.
Crazy high school kids.
Crazy high school kids. I am excited. It is enjoyable. Like I do like preaching, which I guess is a good thing. When you're a pastor, I guess it's a good thing to enjoy that.
Pastor Dave.
It's sort of like the main
Pastor Dave podcast.
calling.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'd say I enjoy that, and I would, as hard as it like, this is gonna sound like maybe a bit of a juke, but like as much of a challenge as it does put on like my family whenever I have a lot of things going on with church. Sounds like a juke or not, but like my wife has to shoulder a fair amount of things in the evening, on a Saturday morning, on a Sunday evening, because of, current work schedule plus pastor stuff. Like this calendar fills up, and so she has to shoulder a lot more some weeks than others, and so she allows me to do those things that I definitely enjoy and feel called to do and everything. And she's also really good about making sure that we still have the time as a family that we need and everything. So I am enjoying the opportunities to preach
shout
more.
out Rach.
Yeah. She's a highly sacrificial person, which is a blessing.
Mm.
And actually, one thing, and a really simple one, is that like she got me 2 albums for Christmas, 2 vinyl records. One is by Slick Shoes, which is a punk band.
Nice.
That's really good. And one is Artifex Pereo Passengers.
Oh, good choice.
And that Passengers is an older album. I think it's from 2016. I think it's from late 2016. And I will say getting that album on an actual vinyl is because it gave me a reason to listen to it again. And it reminded me how absolutely fantastic it is.
Are they still making music, Artifex Brew?
They haven't since then.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't since then.
They were good. They were one of those bands that were good.
Oh, they're incredible. There's some of we don't need to turn into a musical podcast.
Rach got me a vinyl for Christmas too.
You got the Mike Maines one, didn't you?
Yeah.
The Mikey Maines.
That's a good one.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, the other music I'm enjoying right now, I'll just spit a few out. Glasslands has released some new music lately that's really good. And I'll tell you what, in the gym, Project 86, just kind of nonstop. It's fantastic
that'll
music
get you
for the
going.
gym.
So
it's so good.
Get you going.
Yeah. We were Maddie likes listening to put on my Project 86. What album is it with the Fall Goliath Fall? Is that the name of it?
That is shoot.
Yeah. I don't know.
She
album,
listened to it,
but
she'll start headbanging, and I'm like, yes,
Yeah,
I
I
did
love
something right as a father. It's a fun age that she's at. I don't think we've mentioned that, but they're at a fun age.
when I was like, when I be working out or running, I often go to Spoken.
There you
is
go.
another good pick. Yeah.
We were watching
in a while.
Like Through It All and all that. Yeah.
We were watching this weekend.
Wait for the Siren. Name of that album is Wait for the Siren.
Quality album. They were fun to see live, man. I think I've seen them I don't know how many times we've seen them live, but it's been quite a bit. I think last time we saw them was Scully's. If that was a long time
They've been
ago.
doing it a long time.
They've been doing it a long time. And really quick, one thing that I love about them is that as they have gone on, they have not gotten more commercial.
Yeah.
They have gotten arguably less commercial with time.
Yeah.
And it
Good
just
Christmas
feels like
album.
they still do the music that they like to do.
Yeah.
And
That's important.
good stuff. Really unique sound.
We were watching a good movie this weekend, which I would like to recommend. The American Underdog movie is pretty good, but we were laughing about how they have like grits in there. My Life Be Like, and I'm like, oh snap! They also have a few POD songs, and I'm like, man, like this takes me straight back.
That is the Kurt Warner story.
Do you think that Kurt? Yeah. Do you think that Kurt specifically picked out those songs to be on the soundtrack?
I don't know. I'm curious how involved he was in it, because I would assume the way it was that he was fairly involved.
I was like,
they had a lot of footage about not just like the sports footage, which I was surprised about, like from ESPN and NFL, but they had a lot of footage from like even like their more personal interactions as far as how things went. It was a very good movie.
He did a whole mess of like media kind of touring for it, and kind of doing ads and stuff for it. So.
I would recommend. It's PG, and there's not a lot of great movies right now, so especially like family friendly movies that have a good message, and it's not badly made either. Like it good
doesn't
acting.
stink. Yeah,
and it's has sports, but it's not primarily about sports. But Faith and I enjoyed it. I also got to explain what arena football was and who Ray Lewis was, which was fun. But yeah, complicated answer there.
Wait, do they have actually Ray Lewis in there, or is it?
So they have like an actor playing Ray Lewis. What they did is basically, so what they did in the end when they did like the NFL.
That'd be crazy.
Hold on. What if you had you didn't have real Kurt Warner in the movie, but you had real Ray Lewis in the movie?
That'd be pretty interesting. No, what they did, which I thought was pretty cool, which probably saved money as far as stunt doubles go. They'd say when like they went to hike, they'd like cut out to like actual game footage from like ESPN, like Monday Night Football or the Super Bowl. So that way they probably save money as far as like getting stunt doubles
The
and stuff
actual,
like that.
yeah, like the actual football.
Right.
Yeah.
They actually had like from the Super Bowl and like Chris Berman quotes and like Kirk Herbstreit and like Mel Kiper stuff from the draft. So it's pretty cool.
In my head, that sounds like it would not go well, but I've heard from a lot of people that it actually
It was a pretty
good
good series because they showed like inner clips of like people watching in bars and stuff and like people watching remotely. So it worked well. But yeah, I thought it was a very good movie. I would recommend that movie.
I don't know that the term remotely existed back then. Didn't
not
remote
in
exist
like
in 2020 is when we came up with that one?
That's when we did everything remote, like
That's
shopping
right.
remote, eating remote, podcasting
Eating
remote. remote
eating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I have heard a lot of good things about that. I'm hoping to watch it so very soon. One last thing to talk about, which is that I've had the privilege to preach pretty regularly and have a lot more on the schedule coming up, which is fun too. But Jeremy also just has been working on some sermons and just preached at another church in the area. And so we're gonna dig into some questions about the highs and lows of sermon prep and preaching that Jeremy and I can talk about here. So now, Jeremy, you've done this a couple times now, and so whenever you've done it, you've never done it as part of a series, right? So you've always been told you pick what you want to preach about.
Yeah. So, so it's completely different. Like we've done community groups and stuff where I've led, and preparing for a group discussion like is completely different. Even like doing like basically we're still leading a discussion like with high school kids is still a completely different mindset. It's because like, well, if this falls flat, like it's gonna be really boring for the next 20 minutes.
Just a lot of awkward pauses.
But I mean, I've done a few things as far as a theme goes for like camp messages, like snow camp at our previous church. Like 3 of the 4 messages I did one year.
So you you had topics given to you.
Yeah, or like, hey, this is like a general topic. Now make it work. But no, so the last 2 have basically been like, hey, you're helping this church. They're kind of in between things in the area. And shout out to Salt Night. They're great. Love those guys from that church. They're pretty awesome.
Pick up whatever you want to talk about.
Pick out what you want to do. And I'm like, oh, and then like also I'm like, oh, with that, like I would on the one hand, it's nice to like pick whatever you want, but also it's like like having like, especially when you haven't done it a ton of times, like some kind of like general, like, hey, we're gonna be in John, or like, hey, we've been talking about this a lot in our community groups, like either a topic, like we typically do exegetical preaching and straight from the word in our current church.
Yeah.
Like through the series. So that's what I'm used to doing. But I'm like, okay. But I did fit in, like I talked to them a few times. They were in between the last time with Titus before they're starting a new series in Titus. So like one of the guys were doing a Psalm. It's like, all right, I'll just stay in Psalms. So that helped. And I'd also been one like I had preached before a few years ago, like in a condensed setting.
Yeah.
So it's more of an expanding on that.
Like you, I don't like really just being given a total blank slate.
Like do whatever you want and go for it.
Yeah. Like I very like even this weekend, I think this weekend I'll be preaching in Ecclesiastes 7, which honestly is a bit of a challenge. Kind of a long chapter and kind of a lot of different topics going on in there, but I kind of like that I didn't have to spend time wondering what to talk about. And that's also because our church is it's going through books at a time, and it's trying to draw out what's in the books, not use them as a jumping off point to talk about some topic, right? So by and large, we're just doing a bit of almost a commentary on the text. Like that's kind of what the goal is, you know. Explain what these verses say. Don't read a few verses and then, hey, this reminds me of this, and then go off on your own topic. So I very much like having it given to you. It feels like it's, I don't know, less stressful for me. Even for this thing I'm doing at our old high school. Like half the struggle with that was spending a lot of time reading a bunch of different passages going like, well, is this one going to be good? Is this one going to be good? And it's like, I wish I could just be on the actual preparation part of this by now.
Yeah.
So Jeremy, whenever you go to do this, I'm curious, now that you've done it a couple times, what mistake do you think you make when you're trying to prepare a sermon?
I think one thing that I try to do is like, I would say overcomplicate it. Like I'm like, oh, I want to fit into like, everyone says like you should have 3 points or whatever. Also, I've tried several times to have a manuscript, and I'll write like a few manuscripts. I get a pretty good idea of what I want to say, but then ultimately, like the night before, I'm like, all right, like or the morning of, like, yeah, I'm pretty gonna much like I have what I need. It's like some of the main points I have written out because I'm like I want to say these very thoroughly and accurately.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me is trying to overcomplicate it. And I was listening to Alistair Begg one time talk about it. And he goes, I ask myself like 4 questions. Like I start by emptying myself, and then I start by filling myself up first with the word. So I read it, and he goes, what is the Bible saying? Why is it here? Why is the writer saying it this way? And what is surprising about it? And then I added one more, looking to this, and then like as an application, like how does this push us to love Christ more? Like adding that 5th thing of like the application part at the end.
Yeah.
He had those 4, and it was just a quick breakdown of something he had learned when he was younger and learning to preach. Because it's pretty straightforward and there's nothing too complicated.
I had never heard that before. That's actually pretty helpful. I think I can get into overcomplicating it in a different sense where I will want to like, I'll get stuck looking for a golden idea or something.
Golden nugget.
Yeah.
Like it's just easy to do that. Like you get in and you're reading the text and you're like, all right, so what is the big, important, central, life-changing, you like what, like there has to be a thought in here that feels monumental, right? One central truth. Yeah. Like, and sometimes there's just not. Like sometimes you'll have passages, and this is part of the beauty of preaching through whole books at a time, not leaving verses out, is that like not everything is always going to feel like it's just chock full of these ultra profound statements. Some of them are going to be talking about super basic things that you might even almost feel like stupid or elementary saying them from the stage. Like a verse about like be self-controlled. It's like maybe you don't, like the part of me wants to come up with something profound about that. Maybe it's like maybe you don't need to be profound about that. Maybe maybe you can just say what the text says.
Right.
And that's like the easiest mistake for me to make, is that wanting a profound verse, something to feel profound, when that's most of the time whenever I let go of that, things tend to go a lot better. But it's easy to do. I think it's easy for me to do. So yeah, are you at the point yet, Jeremy, with the number of like times you've done it? Have you identified the moment of sermon preparation that feels the most hopeless or defeating yet?
Oh, I think like so if I typically am preaching on obviously Sundays, 2 days. So
normally
by normal that's why we do it. The Lord's Day.
Yeah.
But Wednesday night is usually the worst day. And then Wednesday to Thursday, then Thursday it's like, all right, it might get okay. And Thursday it's like, okay, this is terrible. But then Friday, and that's when typically Faith is like, gives me like this reassuring pep talk. And she does a great job at it.
Pep talk Friday.
Well, no, that's Thursday. And then she's like, you'll do fine. And God called you to do this, he'll be with you. And she does a great job reminding me of that. We're jumping around days here
quite a bit.
Okay, so Thursday night's the worst day.
Thursday
night Friday comes, and I'm like, oh, Friday's like, I had this together. And then Saturday is basically just like finishing touches.
Well, I'm here now. Yeah.
Yeah, Thursday is like the worst of it. And then Friday's like, I feel pretty confident today.
Jeremy set us up there because the way he was talking about Wednesday made me think that was really well done.
It kind of just goes downhill until Thursday.
That was that was well done because you're like, Wednesday's pretty bad, but Thursday's worse.
Thursday, and then Friday, and then Saturday.
And Thursday's the worst.
But Friday, like, I don't know, last 2 Fridays felt like, and I think that was the same when we did community groups, honestly. Like the day before, I was like, yeah, I think we got this. And then, like, because at that point, I'm like, yeah, this manuscript might not play, and that's okay. Like, I think last time, like, I had my manuscript, and, like, I made a whole page, just like, I'm just going to make a page of verses and, like, a few doctrinal points and definitions. And that's what I did.
Overachiever.
And it worked out. Well, it just was easier if I got lost to, like, I can just go to this.
I got a plan B.
I got a plan B, man. That's, like, what I do in life. But, yeah, how about you?
I think I think it's early on in the week for me. And I think I used to feel more defeated like right after I would preach, and I don't think I do anymore. I think that I've been genuinely surprised enough times where I thought things have gone horribly and people have told me it wasn't horrible, that I don't feel as defeated after, like immediately after a sermon, which is good. Because that's something you learn is like you're a bad barometer for your own sermons a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And because you're probably looking at it from a self-centered perspective, and other people weren't listening to it the way that you were in your own head about it.
Well, and I was like, it's like you're analyzing, did everything that I studied and all that come across how I wanted it to come across?
Yeah. There was one of those moments last week where I thought that. Yeah. I'm like, well, no one has told me that like I did anything wrong at this point. So that's good.
Yeah. So it's that helps me there. But I think for me, sometimes it's like, it's normally early on in the week. And I feel like now I think I have enough experience. It feels like I have less of the full defeat and despair moments. And even if I feel like I might go with nothing, I guess there's a little bit of like, it'll be okay. I don't know. It's been okay enough times in the past. But it's early on in the week for me whenever I have yet to form, when I just feel like I haven't read the text enough. And I feel like I just don't get it yet. There's a point in the week, probably like Thursday, Friday, when I feel like I get it. In terms of like having read the text enough that I really understand what it's saying. In terms of like the main points and what needs to be spoken about. Mm-hmm. Early on in the week, when I'm at a bit of a loss and everything seems important or nothing seems important, that's when I feel defeated, because I just will sit there and I'll be like, I'll tell Rachel all the time, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say about this. Like, I have no clue. I've read through it and I have no clue what to say about it. Mm-hmm. And generally with going back to those basic questions, like Jeremy, you brought up some of them, going back to those, reading the verses more, and honestly praying more. Like, I think that one of the best lessons I've learned, completely by God's grace, because I'm a very self-sufficient person, completely by his grace, to just like, in those moments when you're just frustrated and you just feel like there's nothing, just like, that's maybe an opportunity that you just need to pray about this instead of work at it. So the defeat normally is early on. And as soon as I get like a glimpse of hope that, oh, there might be an idea here, or like there might be I feel a direction to go in. It's like, great. Now I'm ready to start going. So yeah, that's when it comes up for me. So, soon Andrew will be, we'll have him signed up on something to preach, and then he can answer all these questions too.
Yep. and I'll need some guidance and stuff like that. And
hey, I'll direct it all to Jeremy, or or a.
Yeah, 'cause I'm the pro. I'm sure that's.
I'm not the
that's
pro.
Not gonna be able to.
I'm
curious,
definitely
like
not.
how I was like, has it shifted, like Dave, and the experience that you've built up? Has it like, you read your texts over and over, you pray. As far as like reliance on any external sources, like with commentaries and stuff like that, has that been streamlined for you in the process? Like, are you having to go out to them? As far as your process, do you go out to them quickly and then kind of go back, or?
Yeah, I think. By the way, for anyone listening, not a professional, but
yet.
Well, I want to hear Jeremy's process too.
Yeah.
Like, is it,
I think the lesson that I've learned, early on, I was a little too beholden to commentaries, and the real danger that I've seen is like it's really easy to look for, like Alistair Begg's a good example because he's a preacher that I love his preaching because it's simple, it's accurate, it's faithful, it's doctrinal when it needs to be doctrinal, it's practical when it needs to be practical. It's great. So it's easy when it's early on. It was easy for me to like get the text and literally go and listen to pretty early on, listen to sermons from pastors I trusted as faithful.
Yeah.
It's easy to do that because and it's not we've talked about Ed Litton plagiarizing sermons in the past. It's not about like, I'm trying to steal his sermon. It's about like, you feel the weight of the task and you want to have a good outline. You want to not preach something crazy. You want to do it well. And it's a little different. Like listening to a sermon from somebody is different than reading a commentary. I think it influences you more, which is more dangerous. What I do now is there are some sermons that I've preached, I don't look at a commentary, I think the whole time. That it's just, I tend to only go to commentaries when there are parts that I feel like I need help on. For example, in the book of Ecclesiastes, I've used commentaries a lot. Because it is poetic and it's tough, and the lessons that it teaches are tough. And so I've used a book by Douglas Wilson that's been really helpful. I've used commentaries that really help break down like the sayings and things that are used in there. So for me now, the process is like pray, read it on your own a couple times, and then it's normally write down what seems to be the most important things from there. And then write down questions that you think naturally come up for a person. Like, and most of those questions are this verse 7 is confusing, right? Like, because those are the things that I think people really need you to preach on, are the ones that like, in some ways people don't need you to preach so much on like, don't be angry. They need you.
Well, especially when you have, we have expository preaching where you have a body that is earnest. They want to hear the word, and they want the word explained.
Exactly.
And so, like that's your goal. You need to preach on the whole Bible, even the quote unquote elementary commandments, because you need to, preaching is not just explaining, it's applying. So, but at the same time, like, I think in one of the verses for this week that I think, sermon is not written yet by any means, but so we'll see if this proves true. But I think it'll play a large part of it, is this verse in Ecclesiastes 7 that talks about, in the day of plenty, be joyful. In the day of little, be glad. God has made them both. That's a hard verse to understand intellectually. Because that's talking about be joyful, like God has made your good days and your bad days. And that's very poetic.
And so like, let's get in, like, that's a verse that feels like it needs taught. It needs
it needs fleshed out quite a bit.
But the base, I don't know, the basic process is pray, read, pick out the biggest parts that sort of they will become your headings by which all the other verses will get organized, and then ask those questions of like, what is really complicated in here that I can help explain? What is God really like? What is like Jeremy said, what is the response to love Christ more and to obey him better after you read this?
Because especially, I was like, especially for a body in that way, like they cannot get to true application, especially for the whole breadth of the word, if it's not explained clearly.
Yeah. I'm not going to expect somebody to apply some like a tricky verse that they don't get explained what it means.
Yeah.
I'm not going to expect them to apply it correctly. And then if I'm having trouble with, I generally want to have an outline and like a central idea and I want to have the bones of the sermon before I look at a commentary. Because otherwise, like I want to have those because I believe that those are the things that God has like emphasized in my mind as the most important parts. So as it goes on, though, you rely on them less, I think, because God it's a skill that God grows you in. So,
yeah.
Well, and they're good tools. Like you said, I think that I've been trying more, depending on the topic. And like for this one, I was like, okay, like I was preaching on Psalm 121. I'm like, okay, if you discuss God being the keeper, and I have people, I'm preaching actually in a homeless shelter. And discussing God being a keeper, like how did other people mention, like discuss the problem of evil? How can I word this thing so it's discussing it well? So finding quotes in that to help support is a helpful resource.
Yeah.
The way that I kind of like, I looked at sermon prep, like Alistair Begg did a thing about think yourself empty, read yourself full, write yourself clear, pray yourself hot, and then be yourself, but don't preach yourself. And that's what I'm reading a book on about folly and preaching and the gospel, and how like all it feels like, well, like get out of the way, like yes, like to a point you aren't preaching yourself, but also you are preaching out of your obligation to your flock and your context and your personality.
Yeah.
Like God gifted you with a certain ability, so you can't completely get out of the way because he fitted you for this task.
Yep.
So with that, I think that I've been trying like less and less, but I think very much what is God showing me in this text through prayer and spending time in the Word, and then in that saying, okay, if I need to flesh out some of these points, looking into commentaries, but for the most part, trying to sit there and trying to do the most of the investigation on my own as much as possible, especially being early on in the game. Like I said, I've done group discussions, but as far as preaching, I was trying to say, okay, what's my personality versus someone else's? Because you can tell when you're not preaching your own personality.
Yeah.
Like, and to a degree, when you're not, we're all learning to speak in our own voice, but you don't want to speak in someone else's voice.
Yeah. Don't ever, if you've done it one time or a million times, be aware of the temptation to sound like that.
I mean, I don't have a Scottish accent.
That Paul Washer sermon that you've seen, like you don't.
Marky Drisks.
You need, or Mark Driscoll, or whoever it may be, Alistair Begg or Doug Wilson or John Piper or whatever. Like you don't need to be them. You're not supposed to be them.
Well, and that's difficult. I think in everything, in all walks of life, like, so there's like, I don't need to be someone else. Like God's gifted me with the giftings I've had to do this task.
Yeah. I was like taking the time and discerning through it yourself. It's gotta be, I think, probably a little more rewarding. And you really feel that's where God is going to grow you, hopefully. Yeah. Like when you get to the point of a fully fleshed out sermon that you have built together, and you have your outline that you're confident in, and God has blessed you in the preparation of, then I think that it just comes together more naturally. And then I think God is obviously like, that's something he can continue to grow in you, and that's something you can desire more and more as you go.
Granted, this is turning into a long episode, but just one more thought. Like, the Puritans talked about preaching with unction, is what they called it. meaning like preaching with fire, preaching with a conviction that what like the person who is speaking meant it, and felt it in their core, not in a means of like the showy yelling, look at me preacher
banging on the pulpit.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that, but it's like it's just that conviction and fire in the person who's preaching. And you will never get that. To Andrew's point, you will never really get that earnestly. I think if you're a good preacher, if you're a good pastor, you want that. But you will not get it if you are trying to preach sermons and outlines that came from other people. You'll only be doing it as a show. Because you will only be convicted about what you're about to preach unless you've put in the prayerful time to study it. Otherwise, you're literally putting on an act. You're like, I'm going to take somebody else's script and act it out with conviction. If you want to have really, I think, if you want to have a really spirit empowered preaching, you have to use the means of grace that the Spirit promises to use, which is prayer. It's prayer and it's the Bible, and it's not sermon outlines from other people and all those other things.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. There you go. It's been all over the place.
It's just been a quality app. All over the place.
I hosted so well this app. Do I get to sign off too then, Dave?
I don't know, man. I honestly think that we like stumbled into this episode, and
I think it's the best episode we've ever done.
Well, we'll see. I guess we'll see based on everything else. And if it isn't, we had fun doing it, and that's what's important right now. This was fun because once again, not taking ourselves too seriously.
Oh, I'm pretty serious right now.
What if everything we just said at the beginning, we immediately sounded so pretentious and self-important on the second half, and it's just ruined. Hey, that'd be bad. Maybe we sounded self-important on the first half too.
Maybe we did. Maybe we sounded more pretentious in the first half, and now we feel less. I mean, we talked about Bigfoot, podcasts,
covered all the bases.
Talked about kids, talked about preaching. I mean, that's basically, I think, our daily lives in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's pretty much everything. All right, well, we got to end this, and Jeremy, if you don't mind, I'll take over the hosting episode or the hosting duties.
I will allow it. Okay. You can end the app.
All right, then in that case, I will end it. This is episode 80. 19 more to go to the big one hundo. And this is Three Brothers Talking, and until next time, we'll see you next time.